We had to choose a town in the landscape that we feel has a lot of interaction with fire, and we chose Pringle Bay for that reason. They have a history of wildfires that either go from the town to the protected areas or from the protected areas vice versa. And we wrote a report, and what it entailed was that you do basically a risk assessment. For instance, how close natural vegetation are growing to the houses, whether their numbers are visible should the fire break out and the fire brigade has to come, turn around, alien vegetation, that type of thing. You come up with a score, and the score that Pringle Bay got was not dangerous, it was extremely dangerous. Pringle Bay is a very conservation-minded community, and we felt that if we can sell the concept to them, that they might adopt it and make it their own. What we did is we had a stakeholder meeting in town where all the local stakeholders of the area attended. For instance, the Ratepayers Association, the Conservancy, the municipality, and then identified stakeholders in the community. And at this meeting we sold the concept to them. They were very keen to get it going because obviously fire is a huge issue in this area. The idea is for the community to take ownership of the concept.
The first thing we did after starting off with a FireWise in Betty's Bay was to have an open morning to inform the community of what the FireWise was all about. The volunteer fire chief from Pringle Bay was the one who held the information session. It is a challenge to get people on board, and you have to keep on telling people why you're doing this. There's a lot of resistance from people because a lot of people want trees, and there aren't really trees in Betty's Bay. They want their big trees, and it's mostly then Rooi and alien trees. And we want to take those out because that's also adds to the fire load in the area.
Well, look, people not wanting to cut road verges, people being in the nature and not wanting to have to adapt it or garden their fynbos, which is understandable because people move from the city into a more rural area or less urbanized area because they want tranquility. They don't want to have to garden and ensure that every square inch is fireproofed. However, if you want to live alongside nature, you must understand it comes with its downfalls as well, and one of which would then be fire. So one then must then protect themselves from fire and then become a bit more sort of compliant with regard to gardening, FireWise, or removing your thatch roof and putting on a tiled roof or tin roof, certain things like that. Mostly people are starting to catch on, so it's going better.
This is what we call a worst case scenario, where a house is in between a lot of veld. There's a high fuel load. So if there's a fire coming into this area, there's really no ways we can protect this house because it will be too dangerous. If you look at the height of this growth, your flame height is about 2.5 to 3 times the height of these plants. So that will be impossible to fight the fire really. We can't put firefighters into a situation like this. So what we really need for these people is to start clear around the house. We don't want a desert around the house. Cultivate more the garden, make it a FireWise garden concept.
The alien vegetation is a problem because it is a huge fire hazard. It also removes enormous amounts of water from the soil. We're trying to encourage the owners of the small holdings to actually remove the alien vegetation, and we're pressurising the municipality to enforce that. It's a very difficult process because we want to cut as much as we can, but it's just time and enough personnel to do it. The average age of the hackers is well over 60.
Because it's a conservancy, people are resistant to making changes, especially to clearing verges sometimes. We do have to clear them to give the fire trucks access. But what I found lately is that if you talk to the people about the areas where they know that there are rare plants that they don't want destroyed, it makes it much easier to get them to accept the fact of verge clearing. The holiday makers and weekend residents are basically the biggest problem because they don't know what to do, and lots of them come from upcountry and they don't know that fires start very easily in our area. First of all, because of the plants that are around us, and then secondly, because if there's a strong wind, it's very, very difficult to contain a fire. They make a braai during the weekend. They don't know that you should actually take a hose and hose down that fire once you've finished. They think they've put it out, but it's not really put out. And they just go off and the wind picks up and the fire starts. So we go out to them at the petrol station, we hand pamphlets to them, and also we go around to the homes and hand pamphlets.
The most causes in our area I would put through to negligence. Braais not being extinguished correctly, lightning is obviously a big factor, and then people just being plain ignorant to the law, that they do not abide by the law, making fires at places which are not designated to make a braai. And of course the big reason is also cigarette butts.
Last Christmas Eve, a big fire was started near one of our lakes in Betty's Bay due to a rocket going off when people were playing around with crackers. But unfortunately in this area it's not a wise thing to do, and it's also not permitted. The only place you can fire firecrackers is on the Kleinmond beach during the season, and only with the permission of the fire chief.
Putting up signs or talking to people, or perhaps educating children as well, and having fire awareness campaigns is a good way of preventing fireworks. And you'll never stop them completely. You'll always have that one person who just sort of bucks the trend. But education is the key, so that's the way that you're going to convert people.
As a preventative measure, Cape Nature has put a fire break on the urban edge with the nature reserve. It's not going to stop the fire, but that's not what the purpose of the fire break is in this case. It's to provide firefighting services access.
The FireWise Community concept is helping us a lot, especially when it comes to fire prevention side, to make the residents of this area aware that there's a higher fire risk and prepare themselves to take responsibility to reduce their fire risk on their properties.
This little booklet has all the information you need for when you have a home in Betty's Bay, to how to protect your home, or best protect your home if there is a fire. It was posted to everybody in this whole community who has property.
We will provide resources such as the posters, other materials which one can distribute to their neighbours and different communities in the area. And also if they're wanting to have a FireWise Day or an awareness drive, we'll also be involved with that and with the local fire department.
We do have in Pringle Bay and also in Betty's Bay a community-based reservist firefighting people. They are a small group consisting of the residents. We supply them with a small vehicle to do the first initial attack on when there's a fire in this area. And so they are quite a big help for us. When there's a small fire, they can get to it easily and try to extinguish the fire before it gets out of hand. So we've got both firefighting and also fire prevention strategies and programs in place for this area.
All the fire hydrants were painted and all of them were tested during the year to make sure that they're all in working condition. And then where those fire hydrants are, in the road, the tarred roads, we made marks and painted some signs to say that this is where the fire hydrant is.
There's a lot of mountainous areas. Access to it is difficult. You can't get your trucks up in the mountains, you are limited with that. We do have helicopters over the fire season on standby for us here, but when the wind is strong, the helicopters can't operate that efficiently. So, you have to work with hand teams and things like that. That's why the fire teams at Kleinmond and also in Pringle Bay and Betty's Bay are trained to help us with the hand teams in the mountains. And we also got great help from Cape Nature on that, because they got teams on standby during the fire season.
The partnerships which they've then formed with their local fire department, their local authorities, ward councillors, etc., it's great. I was a lot more involved in the very beginning, and then once the community seems to be all right, we let them go in a sense, and we will check in once a month or once every 2 months.
Ultimately, it would be ideal if we can roll it out across the fynbos biome, because fynbos is a fire-driven ecosystem. So whenever you live in fynbos, fire is going to happen. So ultimately we would like to roll it out to high-risk areas. Obviously, because of limited resources, you need to prioritize. Lessons learned definitely is you need a willing community. You need a champion within the community to drive it. You don't want to put a concept on them and tell them what to do. You want them to buy in. And then ultimately you need support from your local municipality.